How to start such a serious topic? Well, these are my feelings, thoughts, doing research, putting time into learning more about the conflict, and some of the things I've seen and come together. What can we do to talk about peace and the best way to move forward? There are some discussions around. That's my microphone, buddy. Hi. Yeah. Hi. You gonna lay down? I don't think I have like a banner image of where I want to start. I guess I want to start lighthearted. And this image spoke to me as the tornado is the general vibe of reality and the world right now. And then it's someone maybe like a mile-ish out from that tornado, just like standing there to take a picture saying, "Me doing my best to support my community, advocate for human rights, and find the joy in the small things as an act of absolute defiance and self-love." And for me, trying to interact with these things while keeping up with other responsibilities, showing up for community, and working forward my own ability to do movement work, on top of some like healing and burnout and what has been hard recent years, that still working to come out on top of. And then it feels like there's often just always something, and just working to create space to process things and figure out a way of navigating, and just doing our best to do that dance. And here we are for this important topic, going through the Palestinian-Israel conflict, genocide, and the calls for ceasefire, which the most recent breaking news on this is that, and we have more information on this later, that there is a brokered pause that's supposed to start here real soon around humanitarian channels and people's ability to flee, and a stop to the bombing. And this goes on for 4 days as a bunch of hostages are released. And the opportunity is with more hostages being released. So yes, this is one of the more hopeful pieces of news to come out in recent, and that doing what we can from here. The biggest question that still seems unanswered is ceasefire and end to the fighting, but how does the transition happen? How do we get to peace? And so I plan to put together something more around the solution side. And right now, I'm going to get more into news context and local context. Okay. Some peace talk information. So stop. So stop what you're doing, let go of the thing you're fighting over, be quiet. So release, stop, slow down, calm down, 2, close eyes, breathe mindfully, open eyes. When calm, when all eyes are open, we are ready. So close eyes, breathe mindfully, and open when you're ready. Have to calm down. Feel your emotions, but don't let them take over, and focus on what you're after, which is peace and solution making. Okay, attitude check. I kind of did that a little bit, but humility. I don't assume you are right. Humility. Don't assume you are right. Compassion. Care about each other. Practicality. Focus on solutions. Flexibility. Be willing to compromise. Kind speaking. 4. Youngest speaks first. Be honest. Tell the whole truth. Use a calm, clear voice. Don't accuse. Say, I feel, or it seems. Clearly explain what the problem is. Make a suggestion to fix the problem. Respectfully listening. 5. Don't interrupt. Trust first in speaker's honesty. Try to understand person's feelings. Focus on solutions, not who is to blame. Respond to the problem, not your ego. And 6, agree on a solution. So grounding into that as we move forward with this conversation. Another reminder, if your fight for liberation includes anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, or dehumanization, please unfollow us. No haters. Haters not welcome here. Collective liberation is the goal. There we go. And then also to amplify the Jewish people in your life who are speaking up against Zionism and the Israeli government are undoubtedly experiencing ostracization, shaming, exile, and vitriol from family, community, and friends, while simultaneously feeling less safe in their bodies, while simultaneously longing for deeper communion with their spiritual practices, while simultaneously feeling immense shame, grief, and rage over the national war crimes Israel is committing in their name, while simultaneously processing ancestral trauma, while simultaneously being gaslit and told they are self-hating or not real Jews for refusing to condone genocide and ethnic cleansing, while simultaneously feeling relationally awkward around most of their Jewish community, not knowing where each individual stands, and if your beliefs will mean loss of a relationship, while simultaneously trying to be a bigger person, build bridges, make spaces for hearts to thaw and heal. Yeah, it's a lot, bud. And that, until I saw this post, wasn't that many layers deep that I thought about it. I know that some of the champions for peace are some, of the family members and those outside of America and those who live in Israel. And what we have to do is create space and push for security across the board. And I think a number of us can relate in some semblance to some of these pieces when it comes to COVID and the extra layers of stress that and division that brought up. And this is even a more deeply rooted and historic continuation of trauma and attacks that we must also show up in love for multiple sides and people trying to lead and fight for shared liberation. Hi, buddy. You want to go lay down somewhere else? And the caption here is, "For you, my beloved community, late night thoughts from the granddaughter of a Jewish Holocaust survivor who's feeling a lot of things. Ceasefire, free Palestine, release the hostages. Leadership, thank you for sharing." Okay, so quick research history lesson, because this is something that came up while doing my research. Obviously, I condone acts of terrorism and genocide and killing of innocents. I had no real information or history on this conflict before this year, really. The smallest amounts here or there, I knew it was a not really discussed topic just because of how one-sided the discussion seemed to be, but I have learned a lot recently. And when it comes to the culture and the history part of this United Nations page and the Nakba, which means catastrophe in Arabic, refers to the mass displacement and dispossession of Palestinians during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. Before the Nakba, Palestine was a multi-ethnic and multicultural society. However, the conflict between Arabs and Jews intensified in the 1930s with the increase of Jewish immigration, driven by the persecution in Europe, and with the Zionist movement aiming to establish a Jewish state in Palestine. So that is the purpose of that movement, which doesn't necessarily, and it doesn't always have the same interests as Jewish faith leaders, community leaders, and the community itself. And so this happened during World War II, leading up, during, and then after. And then after the war in November 1947, the UN General Assembly passed a resolution partitioning Palestine into two states, one Jewish and one Arab, with Jerusalem under UN administration. The Arab world rejected the plan, arguing that it was unfair and violated the UN Charter. Jewish militias launched attacks against Palestinian villages, forcing thousands to flee. The situation escalated into a full-blown war in 1948, with the end of the British Mandate and the departure of British forces. So, British, who were the ones who kind of orchestrated this, like, hey, we're going to make this decision, kind of like separate out and say you both can live here, but we're not going to get you even both to agree to the terms first, and we're out. And then the situation escalated into a full-blown war in 1948 with the end of the British Mandate and the departure of British forces. The Declaration of independence of the State of Israel and the entry of neighboring Arab armies, the newly established Israeli forces launched a major offensive. The result of the war was the permanent displacement of more than half of the Palestinian population. And so, as early as December 1948, the UN General Assembly calls for refugee return, property restitution, and compensation. However, 75 years later, despite countless UN resolutions, the rights of the Palestinians continue to be denied. According to the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees, more than 5 million Palestinian refugees are scattered throughout the Middle East. Today, Palestinians continue to be disposed and displaced by Israeli settlements, evictions, land confiscation, and home demolitions. So this is the West Bank area near Israel, where the land and homes of Palestinian people are just taken by what are they called, occupiers or those settlers, who then, if Palestinians or others fight back, the Israel Defense Force kind of backs up the settlers. And it's just another way that they're being pushed and killed and aggravated and tragically taken advantage of, which is part of the call for change. The Nakba anniversary is a reminder of those tragic events. It had a profound impact on the Palestinian people. I mean, more than half the people had to move, who lost their homes, their land, and their way of life. It means a deeply traumatic event in their collective memory and continues to shape their struggle for justice and for the right to return homes. In 2022, the UN General Assembly requested that this anniversary be commemorated on 15 May 2023. So the first time recently. And so I've seen this being brought up just because the amount of people that have had to need to move, that likely going to see this again with the 2 million people left in this area. And then the other thing to note was that the UN, within a year of what Israel did, was like, that's not okay. But even 75 years later, it continues to be denied. And so another aspect of this is that we are actively funding war and this type of leadership. And we could be spending this money in a way that provides peace through building infrastructure and bridges and homes and structure of what a path towards shared liberation and space and ability to be happy and well again. And that is kind of needs to be the guiding light in this situation. There's the innocent life part of the bombing and indiscriminate attacks, which push it towards a genocide, is that this huge violent show of force and being okay with cutting off resources and water and exploding buildings and people, and you wanted to show that terrorism acts create the most tragic version of atrocities, which is a terrible way to handle the situation. So stop working towards making that point and let's work towards finding solutions that if a school shooter was hiding out in a classroom, when would it ever be morally acceptable to bomb the entire school? And I think this helps visualize what individual lives means, because I think we're more used to that being around us than and like imaginable than full out war and cut off of resources. Okay. This is some from 3 weeks ago, so this is increased, but gives us a sense of this Gaza open air, was it called open air prison? And shows where a lot of the bombings and destructions has happened, as well as the situation that the Palestinians have been dealing with of having been put into an area by the ocean, or maybe it's technically a sea, but it leads to the ocean. But for years been dealing with certain permanent closings and small number of crossings, with ongoing conflicts and control being on the Israel side of how do we move this forward? Literally push them into a certain area and across the world. And I think the stance should be space for both cultures to live there. And leadership fighting for a culture and building up and using resources to build homes for people rather than destroy them, and that have to hope that a bridge of peace and the stopping of the cycles of hatred is possible and something worth investing in, and that is something I believe in. Some local news contents. This is Emin Jode, Colorado Palestinian state congressperson, and was one of the people I've been following, posting and sharing local discussions and updates. And I guess just to say, is like an amazing change maker and leader that me tracking Colorado State Legislature has seen for years, leading on things from like women's rights and civil liberties and immigrant rights here in Colorado. And so I guess I just wanted to share that there has been some local news around the Colorado Black Democratic Legislative Caucus calling for immediate ceasefire and release of hostages. The Latino Caucus calls for immediate ceasefire and release of hostages. The Black Christian faith leaders for ceasefire call for immediate de-escalation, humanitarian assistance, and no war in the Middle East, with urges for President Biden. And calling out that this war is a genocide, and sharing Raz Segal's Israeli historian, an associate professor of Holocaust and Genocide Studies at Stockton University, and the endowed professor in the study of modern genocide rights. In the Jewish currents, the song Gaza can also be understood in other terms as a textbook case of genocide unfolding in front of our eyes. I say this as a scholar of genocide who spent many years writing about Israeli mass violence against Palestinians. Full article. And then even recently with the special session, on the side. Hold on. Has no airport. It is not a war. It is not a war. It is a genocide. It's been a genocide since 1948. And then recently, I saw this from another perspective too, but protesters. To host a global conference for the people doing the genocide. This is unacceptable. Do you stand with killing thousands of civilians? Do you stand with killing thousands of children? Because a lot of you have been silent. There is blood on your hands, and you will look back at this and you will feel shame. And if you are remembered at all, you will be remembered on the side of genocide. And you know why you won't run away when we have protests? Because you know that this is indefensible. Indefensible. There are children being killed by U.S.-funded bombs. Do the right thing. We need to exit the door. Ceasefire now. Every 10 minutes we wait, that's one more child.
A child had all 4 limbs amputated without anesthesia last week. So this is not okay.
And this all kind of leading up to, sorry if that was loud for a while. I try to lower it. A national global conference for Israel happening here in Colorado, and our governor Jared Polis is supposed to speak there, and they're publicly saying that there's gonna be protests, so and trying to get people to cancel or pull out of their speakership roles for this conference. $120-year-old organization? That's crazy. Yeah, craziness. It masquerades as an environmental charity, but functions as a quasi-government body, influencing land management decisions and working with the IOF and settlers to carry out land grabs. Founded in 1901 to acquire and colonize Palestinian land, today 70% of the Israeli population lives on land owned by the JNF, much of it acquired by force. This organization owns the land that 70% of the Israeli... That's craziness. The JNF stipulates that only Jewish people can buy, mortgage, or lease land from them, a discriminatory policy that clearly demonstrates their colonial objectives. The JNF compiled a registry of Palestinian towns used by Zionist militias to carry out the 1948 Nakba. So they've got crazy blood on their hands. That is crazy. So they're straight up racist, genocidal, dope. What? For the goals funds we found, and only after this transfer will the country be able to absorb millions of our brothers, and the Jewish problem. I thought I said population. Jewish problem will cease to exist. Your craziness and ensure continuous use. It's crazy. We have that in Colorado, so okay. All right. Tragic. Welcoming address. Jared Polis, what the heck? Okay. Moving on. We will cover that as that happens. I'm curious if this gets more press on how terrible this organization is and calling out of people supporting it. Because your existence is my existence, your pain is my pain, your struggle is my struggle. If I think about a loved one being pushed out of their land and living in a situation where get cut off from basic necessary resources and have to go through bombing and the uncertainty of security and hope, that I can understand that we should make changes, and it's worth fighting structures that stop us from a shared liberated future. You heard? Okay. And then at the national level, AOC leads Democrats urging Biden to call for Gaza ceasefire over children's rights. I've caught some of her live streams and videos on this, and is transparent and is authentic and calls out all the aspects of it. And so the pressure is rising. At least 40 members of Congress now calling for a ceasefire, phone bank for ceasefire. And I have another slide on here that we'll get to, which gives you easy access to contacting your legislators and people around. We don't want the bombing and the attacks to just, after a few days, continue. And so showing that the people that support peace is really important right now. I was looking at this as the Qatar, in partnership with the United States and the Arab Republic of Egypt, a humanitarian pause resulting in an agreement for a humanitarian pause, but will be announced within the next 24 hours and last 4 days, subject to extension. Release of prisoners, another really good aspect, and allow entry for a large number of humanitarian convoys and relief aid, including fuel designated for humanitarian needs. The state of Qatar affirms its commitment to ongoing diplomatic efforts to de-escalate tensions, stop the bloodshed, and protect civilians. And so I was looking at this page a little bit, and what does this necessarily mean? They're not using ceasefire language. It's a humanitarian pause. Israel still wants to continue the war on Hamas. Hamas is the pseudo-government organization and terrorist faction. I don't think a normal type of war is how you beat and get through this situation. Or does help you make sure you get back all the hostages. Welcomes truce. There's one thing in here I wanted to show. Is the Palestinians in Israeli prisons. So, talking about the hostages that Hamas took through a violent act of terrorism, which included killings. And on the flip side, there are thousands of Palestinians in Israeli prisons for different reasons. And actually, prisons and military courts and interrogation centers across Israel and I thought was an interesting addition to the conversation, because it makes sense. I mean, they were taking over the space, so they were doing the colonizer military thing, and there are hostages and prisoners that we could talk about just getting released on both sides as a part of way to peace. So that's all I wanted to share there. This was a satellite image of like the large convoys of people, and calling out that this is how it was during the Nakba. These just like huge, groups of people migrating and trying to find safety. This is also how it was for Indigenous Americans, for Aboriginal Australians, for every Indigenous people genocided and dislocated. Which is tragic. And I'm sure in the next few days with the ceasefire, it's going to happen again as people try to find security. And just to give like context to how far some of these groups are going to have to go, if you're in Gaza, that's about eight times, that's about 40 kilometers, so 25 miles of walking with potentially injured people, malnourished, dehydrated, unsure of where you're going, and still probably unsure if you'll be safe. Definitely unsure if you'll be safe, because this is just one part of the journey. And you don't want to go north. I think that they're going south. And so if you're going to escape through Egypt, you're walking like 25 miles plus. Because of course you can't just take like a direct line. With hopes in changing this, I think normalizing contacting your elected official, understanding who some of your different elected officials are at different levels. This local leaders and state leaders can have an impact in influencing the national leaders and the government at the world level. So in this opportunity, calling some of those national leaders, some of those leaders for your state, calling for a ceasefire, and they track how many times people call them and on what issues. And so normalizing this behavior so that as solutions come up, like fighting for a country that's better and fighting for a better world, this is an ongoing thing. And so this isn't something that takes a lot of time, but definitely takes some intention and learning to bake it in to your toolkit of ways to help out and speak out on and try to influence politics. If you're protesting, know your rights. You don't need a permit to protest in response to breaking news, and you don't need a permit to march in the streets or along sidewalks, as long as you're not obstructing traffic or access to buildings. When you're lawfully present in any public space, you have the right to photograph anything in plain view, include federal buildings and the police. If you believe your rights have been violated, when you can, write down everything you remember, get contact information for witnesses, and take photographs of any injuries. If you get stopped by the police, ask if you're free to go. If they say yes, you have the right to walk away. You can also ask, am I being detained? If they say no, walk away. If you get arrested, you have the right to ask why. Otherwise, say you wish to remain silent and ask for a lawyer immediately. Don't sign, say, or agree to anything without a lawyer present. Yeah, there's some quick pointers. I'm sure Google, you can find much more. So this is happening in Jerusalem right now. Posted within the last week, hundreds of Jewish and Arab Palestinian citizens of Israel came together to a solidarity rally to say that only Israel-Palestinian peace will end the death and violence. Only ending the occupation will bring life. Only partnership wins. Which is such a lovely sentiment and people coming together. I know our media doesn't love that, and there are many people who fight against solutions that bring people together. And so just continued hope for those solutions and change to happen as quickly as it can. And this is a picture. In 2011, the children of Gaza broke the world record for the most kites flown simultaneously at Al-Waha Beach on the Gaza Strip. The record of 12,350 kites still stands today. Stop barking, please. I love you. Pictures. We hope that it can be free and enjoy the same freedom these kites enjoy in the air. Are we looking for us to grow up like normal children? 11-year-old Marwan Mohammed. Both Palestinian and Israeli children should be able to enjoy peace and freedom equally. To secure a just and lasting peace for all, we must end the invasion and end the occupation. We cannot look away or lose hope. We must keep pushing. And so, that's where we are at the end here. And the next thing I want to create is around creating solutions, because we have to think ahead of how do we solve this, how do we create a path forward that inspires people to let go of hate and believe in a vision of something better. And what that's going to entail is bringing things to the table from both sides and rethinking the structures of how we invest. Because we are investing into military and colonization and killing, where we could be investing into homes and infrastructure and peace. Thank you for watching for part of this. I did not think that I was going to go on so long. I'm still figuring out pacing and how to cover a topic in a way that is easy to engage with while also bringing lots of value. Can let me know how I'm doing. And this is kind of just practice for setting up for this next solution session. I hope that this humanitarian pause is followed through with and extended upon, and hostages are safely released and still alive. We have a lot to do when it comes to creating peace and infrastructure and security and justice for populations across the world. As someone who lives in one of those countries who is putting pressure and created situations, I feel like it's important to try to create solutions and push back around imperialistic and controlling decisions and structures for more holistic and nurturing and caring ones. So I look forward to exploring this more. Thank you for watching. Catch you next time. Hello, Editing Braden here. Thank you for watching. I'm still working on the best ways to cover serious topics and try to step into my perspective and what we can do to better these situations. So leave a comment on what you thought and if there's something you think I missed. And if you're interested in watching more content like this around positive impact,